Now the Sézane Fall lookbook has been out for almost a week. I thought we would go back to the lookbook, have a look at what actually dropped. There were a few pieces that dropped that weren't in the lookbook originally, and really dive into the compositions, what I think is worth the money if you are looking to make a purchase from this new release, and what I think you should absolutely be avoiding from this collection. Before we dive in, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Current Body. I got my Current Body Series 2 LED mask a few months ago, and I've been making sure to use this religiously in those last few months. I use it about 4 to 5 times a week, and I have absolutely been noticing a real difference in my skin. I do obviously have makeup on today because I'm filming, but I don't know if you can tell, if you've been an avid watcher of my channel for the last few years, I've gone up and down and struggling with my skin, and honestly, I feel like the last few months, my skin has looked the best it ever has, or at least in a long time, and I do put that largely down to my use of the LED mask. I have a lot of redness around my nose and on my forehead, and this has definitely been reducing it. So if you haven't got an LED mask yet, it is something I do recommend adding to your skincare routine. It's an investment, but you have them for years, you use them multiple times a week, and I really think the results pay off far more than spending on expensive topical treatments like creams, because I feel like those can only do so much, whereas this tech has been clinically proven to boost collagen production and support your skin's natural repair process. I do have a discount code. If you would like to get yourself a mask, I will leave it on screen. It will get you 10% off your purchase. So what from this fall collection is actually worth your money? I'm going to go over some pieces that I do think are hidden gems and are maybe worth the higher price points that Sézane are charging, and some of the items that I would most definitely avoid from this lookbook. The first item I'm going to say to avoid is the first item in the lookbook, and that's the Joseph jumper. I've seen a few people trying this on already, and I have to say personally, just my own personal opinion, this looks a little bit naff to me. I don't really understand the hype around these kind of attached shawl scarf situations. Personally, I would much rather, especially at this £175 price point, buy a standard plain cashmere or merino or cotton jumper, and then a scarf I can wear over the top, or I can wear with other items. I don't really see the point in this. Yes, photographed and styled in the lookbook, it looks quite editorial, it looks quite modern, but in reality, as I said, when I've seen this on people, it doesn't quite have that same effect, I think. So I would personally skip the Joseph, especially for 30% polyamide. It's one of those items that I'm questioning the higher price point for. It is a very similar composition to all of Sézane's previous knits from previous years' collections, and yet it is, what, 20% more expensive. Not entirely sure why. Another piece I would be avoiding in the knitwear category is the Sophie cardigan. The balloon sleeves are ginormous. I've also seen some people trying this one on, and it just looks comical to me. I do think if you're tall, you can probably pull off this proportion a lot more easily, but I've seen a lot of petite women trying this on, or regular height women, and I do just think the sleeves are a little bit too voluminous for everyday wear, unless you like a very exaggerated silhouette. And of course, this is another one where I'm going to question why there is so much polyamide in this, especially when they're emphasizing this return to more natural fibers. One of the knits I do think is worth the money is the Theo jumper. I really like this. Yes, it's simple. Yes, you can get things cheaper than this. This is 100% merino wool though. It's also made in Italy. I think this dark chocolate is a gorgeous color. It isn't trendy. It does feel very timeless. I do like a v-neck, especially for layering. If you have like a t-shirt underneath, or even a shirt with a collar underneath, I think a v-neck jumper can really add to that layered look, which I love in autumn. So this one I would say is definitely worth the price point in my opinion. It comes in the burgundy color, which to me in the photos looks like a burnt orange. They're calling it burgundy, so I don't know if that's kind of a difference between the filters Sézane using and the reality of the color. Let me know if you have this, or if you've seen it in person. Is it burgundy, or is it actually this burnt orange color? And then they have the dark chocolate. That would be my personal favorite, I think. The Zaylee coat, they're calling it a coat, but it is somewhere between a knit and a coat. I also think is another piece that could be worth the money if you live in the right climate. It's 100% wool, which I love, and it is £260. On the steeper end, but they are considering it a coat. So if you're talking about outerwear, a little bit more reasonable than knitwear. It's got this big chunky ribbed funnel neck and these huge voluminous sleeves. I do think this is a really cool, interesting silhouette. It's definitely different to things I've seen at other brands. It doesn't feel like a copycat of a design you can find at Massimo Dutti or COS, at least not what I've seen. And it definitely has a more statement vibe to it. So if that's your aesthetic, if that's your style, you might really love this. I do think you have to live in the right climate for something like this though. If you're going to need a really heavy coat in just a couple of months, you're probably going to have a very limited time to wear this because it does have those huge sleeves. It's quite chunky, so it's going to be difficult to layer over the top. But if you're somewhere that is quite mild, it never gets too cold, this could be your perfect alternative to a winter coat. It's cool, it's different, it's interesting. I give them marks for design on this one. Let's talk a little bit about coats now. The first coat I'm going to say is not worth your money is the Arnaud trench coat, coming in at £300. Now this is 100% organic cotton, which is a lot better than another trench coat I'm going to talk about in a second. But personally, I don't love the design details of this coat. Firstly, it's got these snap buttons instead of your traditional button. I really don't like these. I think these make this coat look far cheaper than it actually is. This is an expensive trench coat. This is more expensive than the Clyde trench coat, and I don't think it looks it. I just feel like these snap buttons, when you have the coat open, they look cheap, and even when you have the coat closed, I don't love what I presume are these plastic button caps. I mean, it's nice that they're tonal with the colour of the coat, but other than that, I really would much prefer just a regular button. I said this in my previous video, I also really don't like D-rings, especially on belts. I find that they never stay closed. They're really fiddly to just get comfortable and get closed. So if you do want to wear this coat closed a lot of the time, I just feel like a D-ring is not the best way to do it. I feel like having a proper buckle that you can fasten properly is so much more practical and convenient, and I just don't like the way D-rings look either. I think they look cheap, and it's got them on the cuffs and it's got them on the belt, so this would be a skip for me. I think you would be much better off either going for the Clyde or the Scott, or going for this style of trench at a different brand, which would probably be honestly half the price for similar quality. One coat that I do have time for is the Lior coat. This again gets points for design. I think it's one of the more interestingly designed silhouettes within the collection. They describe it actually as a raincoat rather than a trench, and it has this big removable cape on it, which gives a very dramatic effect when attached. However, you can remove that for a slightly more laid back, subtle look, and it still has this really nice stand-up collar. It's got the tortoiseshell buttons, which I much prefer to the snap buttons, a little bit more of a substantial belt. It has like a proper buckle, nice cuffs. It looks like a really, really nice coat, and again, composition wise, this is also 100% organic cotton. Now personally, I wouldn't buy this one because I don't love the color. I don't love this greige. They're calling it taupe, but to me, at least from the pictures, it's leaning very grey. It's not my favourite colour. But if you like this more muted colour, if this suits your colour palette and the rest of your wardrobe, I think this could be a really interesting silhouette. Something, again, a little bit different, but still looks like it's constructed from high quality materials. Finally, if we're talking about trench coats, I can't recommend the Pierce coat. I've tried this one. This one actually released a few months ago. I tried it and I was really disappointed when I ordered it. I forgot to check the composition. And I just presumed, because all of their other trench coats to date I think have been 100% cotton, the Clyde, the Scott, I just presumed this one would also be, because it looked similar price point, actually more expensive than the first two. It's actually 50% viscose, 50% organic cotton, and you can really tell that from the feel of the material. It was very thin, creased incredibly easily, and it was also, I believe this one as well it was also unlined. So it had that very floaty effect, very drapey effect, but to me it just felt quite cheap for its £280 price point. It felt like something you could see at Mango or at Zara for about £100, so I would skip on this one as well. Okay, let's talk about tops. They did release a couple of tops that weren't in the original lookbook, and there were some more traditionally Sézane, old Sézane kind of styles in here as well. We have the Joris shirt, which is a little bit frilly for me, although I can appreciate it. Also 100% organic cotton. The Maria shirt we were talking about in the lookbook video, I couldn't tell if this cape scarf situation was going to be part of the top or if it was just a personal piece they'd used for styling. Now the good news is it is part of the top, which I do like. The bad news is, and I can't understand why they've done this, is that it isn't removable. So the only way you can wear this top is with this lace kind of shawl scarf situation attached. Now I do think this looks really good if you layer the lace top bit over your coat and you wear it to look like one of those frilly lacy scarves. I think that look is very in at the moment and I think it's pretty. It's a way to feminize your outerwear, especially if you're wearing like a wool coat and having that bit over peeking over the top. But the fact that you can't detach this is just perplexing to me. I think if they'd have either sold this as a separate accessory that you could layer with, genius, or if they'd made it detachable to the top, it would make perfect sense. But the fact you can't remove this just makes it way less versatile, makes it quite annoying because sometimes I feel like you're just not going to want this on. And instead of having a shirt that also has this to use if you want it to, a plain shirt, you now just have a very extravagant shirt that you can't wear any other way. One top I do like is the Marilou shirt. This is just a classic lace embroidered white shirt. My one criticism from the more old Sézane pieces that released during this collection, the pieces that weren't in the lookbook that were a nice surprise, they are all white. And as much as I love a white frilly lacy shirt, why have we not got any of these more feminine styles in other colours? I'm really missing the other colours that they used to make these pieces in. Do you remember like the deep burgundy of the rim shirt, or the olive greens, the navies, the pinks? I just really want some more colour in this lookbook, and I do appreciate that they have added some of these more old Sézane items to the collection, but they're all in neutrals, pretty much all in white. And you only need so many frilly white tops. I know, I've got too many, so I was a little bit disappointed in that, but it is a nice top if you're looking for a white version. I think it's very classic in its femininity. It's not too trend-led, it's not got too frilly big sleeves like the other one we looked at just recently, the Joris shirt, which I think is a little bit more trend-led. This one feels nice and classic and it isn't going to date. A new style they've released is the Hannah shirt. This looks quite similar to the Chloe shirt from previous years, although it is 50% viscose. Now, I haven't felt this shirt, so let me know if you have felt this in person, whether in the store or if you've ordered it from the website, but I'm just disappointed that they've gone from the Chloe shirt at £110, 100% silk, to the Hannah shirt at £125 for viscose mixed with silk. Maybe there's a reason, maybe it's a nicer feel, maybe it feels more durable, although I don't think the silk of the Chloe was particularly delicate, but it just feels like they're charging more for lower quality materials. So again, bit confused on this higher quality rhetoric that they keep spinning. Looking through the rest of the tops, I'm not really inspired by anything else from the new release. All of the pieces that I'm drawn to are previous collection pieces. I still think the rim shirt is a great buy. I still think the Chloe shirt's a great buy. The denim Max shirts I really like, or the striped ones if you have a more minimal style. So all of those I would still recommend and are currently still available, but who knows for how long those are going to be available. Let's have a little look at some of the heavier wool coats now, because it's a real mixed bag here as well. So the Matthias coat, £425, definitely an investment, but it is 100% double-faced wool. So I do like the composition. Now, how much was the Mederick? I think it was 370. So definitely a price increase from that, although you do get the scarf with it and it is removable. So I'm gonna give them points for that. I do like the design of this one. I think it's quite classic with the trend piece of the scarf, but at least you can take that off if you get bored of it. I love the color, the dark chocolate brown I think is really pretty, and being 100% wool, I don't think it's a terrible buy. So this one is one, if you're looking for a winter coat and that is about your budget, I don't think you can go too far wrong. Last week I said I really didn't like the look of the Percy coat. I didn't like the way it draped and it looked like it had some synthetic in it, and I'm right. I have spent a lot of time looking at Sézane pieces over the years on the website, and I can kind of tell when something is cut with a synthetic blends. So this is 25% recycled polyamide, 75% wool, £360. I honestly don't think there's any reason to buy a coat for over £300 with any amount of polyamide in it. You can get some beautiful 100% wool coats for under that price point, and honestly I think they drape a lot nicer than this one. There's something about the drape of this one. You can't really tell in the navy, but if you look at this coat in the camel, I think it's more obvious. It looks a little bit stiff. It looks cheap to me. I would pass on this one. It's all about the leather and the suede in this lookbook. There are so many leather coats and jackets to look at. I think all of them, for the most part, look reasonable if you want a leather coat. Some of them are more expensive than others. The Amory coat, £480, but it is a full length coat, to be fair. I really like the look of the Rob jacket, which is a goat leather suede jacket. I think that's really nice. One that I don't like the look of and I feel like should be a skip is the Louis coat. This is pretty much the most expensive coat, I think, on the website at £495. I really don't like the drape on this. I think there's too much material. I think this is gonna overwhelm the majority of people. I think it overwhelms the model, and if she doesn't look good in it, who else is going to look good in it? She's probably 5'10" and a size 36, and it just looks too overwhelming on her. There's no buttons to break up the huge amount of suede. There's no other details other than a suede belt. I just don't love the look of this. I think it's too much material. I think it swamps her, and I think it's also overpriced at £495. Disappointingly, most of the other wool coats are blended with polyamide. The Danny coat, the Jonas coat, I'm not 100% sure. Let me have a look. Yep, 25% polyamide. Lining is 50% acetate as well. I'm not impressed with these compositions. I don't think I would notice as much if they hadn't have made such a hoo-ha about them improving their compositions and that being the reason for the increase in price. I don't see any improvement. It's the same. Before they had 100% wool coats and they had some with 25% polyamide. They still have that at the same balance, I think. So what they are talking about, I'm really not sure. The Mervyn coat is exactly the same. That one's only 20% polyamide and is a little bit cheaper at £305, but I'm still not overly impressed, to be honest. Let's have a look at the Valentine jacket. 34% wool, 33% kid mohair, and 30% polyamide. So a similar composition to a lot of their knitwear. And again, on the cheaper side at £265 with the removable scarf. No, non-removable scarf. I don't love that. Okay. Asymmetric and non-removable scarf. That would make this a skip for me, as well as the 30% polyamide. Not necessary, I don't think. The suede and leather wheel jackets from the old collection I still think are great buys. If you are looking for a leather jacket, I don't think you can go too far wrong with those. In terms of trousers, not my area of expertise because I don't really wear Sézane trousers. Not very impressed with the Lisandro trousers. These are 98% viscose, 2% elastane for £135. I don't love them. This very low rise is also quite interesting. With the lack of waistband, I think it looks quite cool in the editorial shots. I don't think it's going to translate so well into real life. I do think the USIS trousers in 100% cotton could be a really good buy for the office if you're looking for something like this. Love that they're 100% cotton. They aren't too expensive. They look really nice and high-waisted. They look classic. They look nice. Again, not something I would buy, but I do think if you're into this style, those could be a good option. As suspected, the bags are just a disappointment to me. I'm looking at them now and they are all the same. So they are all made of split cowhide leather, which is the lowest quality leather that you can use for a bag. Now, I did see a creator defending this, saying that almost all suede bags at any price point are made of split leather. I'm not sure that's true because I'm pretty sure I have suede bags from other brands that are higher quality than that, but I will double check that and maybe put some info or some brand recommendations in the description box. Either way, I don't think the price points are justified for the quality of leather, especially with my mixed experience with Sézane bags. I think if you're buying some of the smaller bags, if they're under 300 or around the £300 mark, that's okay. But when they're charging upwards of £500 for a split leather bag, and this is the regular leather, not just the suede, I think you can go to so many other brands at that price point and get an impeccable quality top grain, full grain leather bag. Look at Demillier, look at Parisa Wang, look at Songmon, look at so many other brands. Again, I can put some recommendations in the description box. I just don't think there's any reason to be spending £500 on a split leather bag from Sézane, but that's my opinion. Overall, I do think there are a few pieces, especially within the knitwear, that I am definitely drawn to. The Virgil is another one I've got my eye on, the navy one. I think the cotton knitwear is beautiful from Sézane. A really good, more affordable option compared to the cotton knitwear at brands like Christy Dawn, which is way more expensive. I think the quality is very comparable. So the Virgil is definitely high on my wish list. But otherwise, I'm a little bit disappointed. There were definitely a couple of feminine pieces that they included in the end, but it felt quite half-hearted. They weren't in the lookbook, they weren't pushed, and they're all in really neutral colours, which isn't really the feminine Sézane that I knew and loved. Let me know what you think. Have you come around to this collection yet? Have you made any purchases? Are you awaiting an order? Have you received your items? I'd love to know your experiences so far with touching these pieces in person. Does the quality match up to the higher price points? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye.